Hello, viewers. In the last episode, we have seen some fantastic things about why is this data analytics so important, and we have seen the basic steps and the various terms which has taken us to the data warehouse. And today we are going to further our journey with Amit Agarwal, and he is going to help us from his practitioner experience over 3 decades. So let's continue our discussion with Amit. Hi Amit.
Hi.
So I'm much eager to start this discussion again.
Sure, me too.
So whatever you have learned since your schooling and college days, sometime or the other you were able to use it.
Yes.
So for my viewers, even if you learn things, they don't go waste.
No way. Yeah,
You have your programming sense, you know how to integrate. Even though you could create fantastic reports for your management, you could work on the look and feel in those days.
Yes.
And when things were not available as easy.
Correct.
And now I'm sure you are doing on so many other wonderful things, but the concepts remain the same, or you could use those conceptual knowledge for the current needs.
Right.
You mentioned a big time change about ETL. Now, after data integration, it was called, and then it is now pipelines. Could you please elaborate on that? That how things are still the same but called differently, and has the work changed in some way or the other?
Yeah, so before we get into pipelines, I think we still have to get to one more step of ETL, which is the ELT.
Yes, please.
So, like I said, ETL is about extraction, transformation, and load. So, if we have to talk about a little bit about the concept of that, so what it means is that I am extracting the data, I am doing the transformation in it, either in the extraction source or in a middle layer, and then I am loading it into a target. Over time, what has happened, like I was telling you that there were no BI specific databases. But over time, people realized that for BI, because there is a different need, BI is more about, or analytics is more about querying.
Correct.
And querying in large amount. Transaction was inserting or deleting, but in small amounts. So they wanted to make sure those efforts or those operations are happening fast.
Okay.
But in the and the database didn't change. So the database was catering to actually that only, even when we were using it for reporting purpose. So then companies like Teradata, they realized that they can build a database which is primarily for reporting purpose.
Yeah, fast.
Yes. So now if I have a database which can do things faster, then companies like Informatica thought that why shouldn't we use it for even doing transformations faster?
Right.
Instead of in using a middle layer, if I use the power of the database to do transformations faster. So that is how the concept of ELT came into picture.
Extract, load, and transfer.
Yes. So you do the extraction, you load it into a target, and in the target you do a transformation.
Sure. Okay.
But we are still talking about structured data. This was still about structured data.
Right.
Now, in last 10-15 years, things have changed. People have realized that structured data is just not enough. Because in last 10-15 years, people were always aware that they have been collecting a lot of data, and they were using about 1% of that data for their analysis. Because primarily technology was not in place, or perception was there that technology is not in place, whatever be the reason.
Right.
But then when big data came into picture, Hadoop came into picture, people started realizing that they can use more than just structured data.
Absolutely. So the sources have changed.
Yes,
big time.
right.
Yeah.
And that is how this whole concept of ETL has become a broader term called data engineering.
Data engineering. Yeah.
And now when we talk about data engineering, we are saying that we have to build a pipeline. Because we are not just processing or doing an ETL, we may be in some cases just copying a file from one source to another. So that is still part of data engineering, but I'm not doing any ETL there.
Right.
So I'm just doing a pipeline. So I'm just creating a schedule to move something from point A to point B.
So there is a workflow basically.
Yes.
That you are calling as a pipeline, as the logical name suggests.
Correct.
And it is not, so basically it's not limited to any structured data.
Yes.
You are just thinking an entire flow, and where this pipeline typically land into. So typically we used to have our data warehouse. Is it still the data warehouse, or is it something else now?
Actually, eventually, in my opinion, it still lands into a data warehouse. But now the difference which has happened because of the power of the databases, Lot of times these data warehouse has become what we call it as a virtual way.
Okay.
So previously all of these data warehouses were having physical tables. Now when you do the pipeline, you bring it into, remember we just talked about staging area or ODS. So now people bring that data into that area, but they don't call it a staging or ODS now, they call it a data lake.
Data lake, yeah.
So they bring that data into data lake. So that is where you physically store everything. And then you create in data warehouse, we used to use the term dimensional model. So we create a dimensional model, but now we don't create it as a physical in most cases. Only we created physical if we have performance issues or if we absolutely have something where we need to do that. So that is the difference. So to answer your question about pipeline, in most cases now the pipeline ends in the data lake area. Very rarely you will actually see a physical data being moved into a data warehouse, basically.
Right. Wow, fantastic. Now, two more terms people talk about. So, pipelines, most of the people are aware, but some people are talking about Azure and AWS. How is this? And the pipelines are usually done using these platforms, so to say. So, could you explain a little bit? Is it just like your Informatica and Pentaho, or it is something more than that?
Yeah, it is actually more than that. So,
Okay.
so basically, when we talk about Azure or AWS or even Google for
Google
that
as
matter,
yeah.
That is more of a platform. So, like I was mentioning, that we are now on a cloud. So everyone wants to use cloud as their infrastructure platform.
Right. Right.
So whether it's a database, whether it's an ETL, whether it's reporting, everything, they don't want to have that pain of managing it themselves.
Right.
There is someone available like a Microsoft, like a AWS, like a Google, who is able to manage that infrastructure for them. So initially it started with that they just said we will give you a platform. You can host your database here, you can host your ETL pipelines there, and you can host your reporting tool there.
Right.
Over time they realized that if I am putting a business objects kind of a tool on this, it is not able to use the power, or power is probably not the right word, but the optimization that a cloud can do.
Okay.
So these vendors, they themselves ventured into building the BI tools and technologies or analytical tools and technologies over their cloud platform.
Okay.
So now you have an Azure Data Factory, for example, or you have an entire AWS analytical platform, multiple tools in that, or GCP, which they call it. Again, it has multiple tools.
Right.
Like Looker for the reporting purpose, or AWS has a SageMaker for a predictive purpose, for that matter. Okay. So there are different tools which are now optimized to use the power of the cloud. So that is where these tools are coming. The concept still remains the same. That you still have to do, first is about data. You still have to process the data. You still have to model the data. You still have to build either a reporting or an analytical model on top of it. Okay. So the concept doesn't change. It's just that you are doing it in a different platform. You don't have to worry about your machine crashing also now, because it is all stored on the cloud now.
Right. Right. So having a data warehouse, is it mandatory or is it a big plus for the ML and AI related work, which is often talked about?
Yeah, so I think there will be multiple people having different opinions on this thing.
Okay.
A lot of people think that we don't need data warehouse if you are doing an ML and AI thing, because in ML and AI, generally the assumption, perception is you need the data, you bring the data what you need, you do your processing, and you move that output to some place, create a pipeline for that, and let it be. Okay. Don't worry about how the model is and all that, basically. Excuse me. But in my opinion, data warehouse actually helps you improve what you are trying to do. Two reasons. One, you don't have to do that processing of the data every time when you are building your ML and AI pipeline, because that has been done for you. And the second is the data quality. Okay. Otherwise, I am sure you must have read the facts that when we talk about ML AI, 80% of the time people spend in actually scrubbing the data. But if you already have a data warehouse in place, then that part is taken care by the data warehouse for you.
Right.
So that is why I feel personally that data warehouse is still required.
Yeah, it's a good practice to create a data store or the data
Yes.
warehouse for various reasons.
Right.
Yeah.
Although, yes, some people may argue that because we are using now a lot of unstructured data, a lot of video kind of data, and those kind of things.
Right.
So, typical data warehouse is not able to support that. But now, with the new technologies, a data warehouse is able to support all of that.
Correct. Because you can keep different types of
Yes.
information there. Fantastic. Now, again, starting from our transactional world till now, things are changing big time. But I still see that the concepts are important and adapting to different tools, technologies, platforms, and that is something which will always be a plus when you want to enter into this field, either as a business user or as a technical user. So, Amit, jobs have changed big time, and the taglines to the job roles are, I see a big change, but the concepts doesn't change.
Yes.
Could you throw light on some of the terms then which were used and how it evolved to something called as a data engineering expert and somebody was a ETL developer based on what you just explained? Are there any other changes you have seen over years?
Yeah. So, means, for example, data scientist. So, that is probably the hottest job right now.
Okay.
And everyone wants to be a data scientist. But if you really look at it, it is still means yes, while it needs some additional knowledge and skills, but the fundamental still remains the same because again, data scientist also has the word data.
Right.
So data is still the fundamental there. So you still need to know data engineering, which is ETL. You still need to know about reporting and business intelligence concepts. You still need to understand the function. So those things have not changed.
Yeah.
But yes, from when we talk about data science, so then that automation thing and ML machine learning has come into picture. So you need to know a little bit more about statistics. Again, statistics has been there since 60s, as you know, the predictive and those things basically.
Right. Right.
But now, because of the hardware and infrastructure being available, it is used like in our day-to-day life. Previously,
applied.
yes, previously it was something which was very specialized. So, in my opinion, I think anyone who wants to start, they don't have to worry about, oh, I am not a data scientist, I am not a data engineer. They need to start with those fundamental concepts.
Right.
That data, I should understand the data. I should understand how do I store the data.
Okay.
How I should understand how do I process the data. I should understand how do I model that data. And then how should I actually make sense out of the data, meaning visualizations basically.
Correct.
As long as you are there, the next things are, I wouldn't say it's easy, but it is much easier actually.
Okay. So the big change which has happened over 30 years, if you understand why it has happened, then probably you could learn the basics and build onto it.
Yes.
And it will not need 30 years to be where we are
Obviously.
today.
Yes.
It will be much faster if
Yes.
you understand and work on it.
Yes.
Fantastic. I also have some question about the management today. So we have all seen in 90s and early 2000 time frame that people were typical project managers and almost they have vanished now. So everybody who is in the management is also technology inclined. Do you see a similar case in all the MNCs today where other typically people from data analytics, data science, AI, how technology up to date they are and does that help?
Yeah, so means like you said that data is something that people are using now in their day-to-day life.
Right.
They have understood the importance of it. So to use that data, they need to be technology aware because Excel, while it helps, like finance, it still uses Excel big time.
Correct.
But in other areas, they are not able to just use Excel for their use. So they need to understand a little bit about how do I do ETL, for example. How do I make reports or how do I make my AIML pipelines? All those things they have to have. So obviously they don't need to be a programmer, but they need to understand that. They have realized it. And with the domain knowledge, it actually helps them a lot because they know where and how to apply that. So yes, you're right that people are getting more technology savvy. They are becoming up to date with the new technologies, new terms,
Sure.
and asking more questions to IT also.
And it's helping them in their day-to-day work also.
Yes, yes.
Great,
And self-service is becoming a big deal now.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone thinks that they can do things by themselves, and in a lot of cases, they are able to do it
Fantastic.
because of the tools and technology.
So great, Amit. Lot of information since the beginning, and a big change. I can see how things were and how things are being used now, how the management is also adapting. But also, I'm so happy that the concepts have not changed.
Yeah.
So we always preach methodology first. Could you please tell a little bit about how things might change in the coming few years? What people should look at, any terms, any technology you could refer to, and tell us something by example.
Yeah, so see, technology-wise, things will change obviously, but concept, in my opinion, will not change.
Okay.
Uh, so to answer your question about what, in my opinion, will come up, so this AI ML, which is the hottest thing right now, will evolve more.
Mm-hmm.
And so even today, for example, people are already talking about agentic AI,
Okay. Yeah.
which is basically the thing where we are asking the agents, meaning the AI
AI
engine,
agents. Yeah.
to make decisions. Means obviously today we are not talking about complex decisions. Today we are saying simple decisions, and still there is a check and balance where people are saying, okay, the agent still has to check with someone, and after 10 times they have checked, and if the decision is always 100% what agent wanted and what the business person wanted, then okay, business person may say, okay, now I delegate this to you. But I feel that eventually going forward, this will change and it will become more and more, what should I say, dependent, if I can use that word, on the technology.
Okay. Okay.
And people will more focus on the business day-to-day stuff,
Yeah.
or not even day-to-day, I would say strategy stuff, and leave this day-to-day tactical stuff to these agents.
Right. So we always say technology is enabler to business. And as the things time is changing, we can actually see that in reality.
Yes,
So
yes.
if you know the business, then you can apply all these technology elements there. Fantastic. Do you see a change in the way of learning which has happened? So all of us, we went to college, we were not even aware about how exactly we are going to use these some of this thing in our career. And fast forward 30 years, big time, what we learned in college is probably was something else, and we have adapted now. Thankfully, today's students are able to learn something which is happening in the
Right,
industry
right.
by ways of actually working with the industry itself. My question goes to the traditional way of learning and the collaborating with the industry. Do you see students have a role to work with the industry and then explore their career?
Definitely. Means, like you said, means if we are just giving theoretical knowledge, so like even one of my professor used to say when we were in engineering that we are not teaching you anything other than logical thinking in engineering. So I think that has changed, or that can change with business or the industry collaboration.
Okay.
Because then industry experts can bring the real life problems and tell the students. And what we have seen even in our companies, that when we hire the freshers, they are actually able to think outside the box.
Right.
So same thing the students can do when a real life problem is given to them, that they can actually come up with a solution which probably an industry expert may not have even thought, because they have a way of thinking.
Different way of thinking. Yep.
So I believe it can be a real game changer actually.
Great,
If we do
yes.
that more.
Yeah, we often kind of teach students and we see how they think differently, and they always have their tools at their tips. You know, they think phenomenally different. But I do see a difference when practitioners like us, they work with the students, and the end product could be really, really different.
Right.
Talking about that, there are center of excellence set up in almost all the bigger MNCs. Could you tell what happens in these COEs and how cross-functional aspect of work is happening there?
Yeah, so like you said, that there are different types of center of excellences. So when we talk about IT, it is more technology focused. So what we do is that we try to evaluate and look out for new technologies, or even the maturing of the existing technologies, how it is happening,
Right.
and how we can use them
Mm-hmm.
in our function or industry or company for that matter.
Right.
The other aspect of it, like you mentioned about cross-functional. So nowadays, yes, we have the Center of Excellence for AI/ML actually. So in that is not only focused on technology. There we talk about the business cases also,
Okay.
and we try to see that okay, if someone has solved something, or ChatGPT is a very good example, that when it came into picture, people thought that it is just good for asking questions or solving a UPSC paper and those kind of things. But these center of excellences in the companies, they were able to use those ChatGPTs of the world to solve business problems,
Right.
combining their data with the LLMs of the world, basically.
Great. So we often tell students, because they are younger and we can, all of us are seniors, we can tell them that, hey, you need to learn this in a particular way. Do you have some suggestions of people who are laterals or experienced, that how they need to keep up with the change and why they need to be students again? Because you are a perfect example, because I know you are always learning something and you are implementing this throughout your career. I am observing you. What kind of advice do you have for the experts out there, for the laterals out there, that how they can keep up with the change and how do they do that?
Well, I can talk about how I do it. I don't know whether that is the right thing or not.
Yeah, that will help.
So one thing is obviously about reading. So we have to be up to date, up to speed on what is happening in the market. So that reading and be involved in the blogs or so obviously you cannot know everything or you cannot be there for every blog, but everyone should identify their interest areas and just follow some of those blogs or read about that.
Okay.
Whether it's technology, whether how it is implemented, that is one part of it. The second is to be always curious and not, what should I say, limit ourselves that okay, if I know business objects, for example,
Right.
if business objects cannot do something, that means this problem cannot be solved. That attitude has to not there.
Right.
So, and something which is especially in seniors, like you said about us, because we have been doing things in a particular way since a long time, we think this is the only way things
Right.
work. So that I think flexibility has to be there.
Right.
That a problem can be solved in different ways, and we need to look at those different ways. We cannot limit ourselves to the tools. So tools should be a means to solve something and not actually the final thing for us.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for this advice. One last question I have.
Sure.
If you would tell some basic steps, 1, 2, 3, 4, up to whatever you want to say, that how could a entrant into this field of data science, analytics, AI, ML, various terms called these days. So people feel left out sometimes. There's so much being talked, and then they feel, hey, probably I'm not there. And you almost answered some of the things, but specifically some things which they must learn, starting say their Excel. What are those things? If they learn as a technology, they could get faster into this field.
Well, so in my opinion, again, I think concepts are important.
Okay.
So first thing everyone should focus if they want to get into this area or at least be aware of this area is data. So they should understand that what is data and how data is actually either being stored, processed and all that. So the data engineering part becomes important. So that is where technology wise means I think for Python is probably the hottest thing right now. So people can and should learn Python.
Okay.
And it is surprisingly, I also found that it is probably one of the easiest language to learn.
Great.
So I think that could be a very good starting point.
Okay.
But more importantly, my suggestion to everyone would be that just because everyone is going and learning data scientist or data science or AI/ML, they should not go for that.
Okay.
They should try to understand, because there are, like I said, there are different areas in this thing. Data is one part, business domain is another part, the statistics is another part. So you don't necessarily have to be an expert in all of that.
Okay.
Based on your interest, you can pick an area and you can just excel in that.
So areas like database, data visualization, data integration.
Correct. Or like functional area. So means that doesn't mean that you will only be learning or working on functional area.
Okay.
You will have to learn a little bit about data visualization, but you don't have to go into the depth of that.
Right.
Same thing on statistics. So if someone loves statistics, for example, they can be in that field. They don't necessarily have to become an expert in building a data pipeline or building those things.
Okay. So you have to be aware about what you like and hence proceed. Thank you so much, Amit.
Sure.
This was a great discussion, and right from the transactional world till where we are today, you have helped us explore so many fields.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks. So, viewers, this was a wonderful session, and we have learned what was transactions and how we have evolved about various aspects of data, the data visualization, the data integration, and right till the AI ML. Please go back to all the last 2 episodes basically and find action items for you. Be curious and make sure that you draw a path for yourself. Things are easy only if you try. I'm sure all of us can get into this field of data analytics. Thank you.